From a world chess champion to a man with an IQ of 275, here are the 10 smartest people ever. Where do you rank? Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov was born on April 13, 1963 in Baku, Azerbaijan, which at the time had been part of the USSR. Garry is one of the smartest men ever born. He became the youngest world chess champion back in 1985 at the comparatively young age of only 22 years. He was also the first world chess champion to be defeated in competition by a supercomputer. This incredible genius began playing chess at the age of only 6 and was the Soviet youth champion by the age of 13. And while he was ultimately defeated by Deep Blue, the computer chess program, in 1997, he had first beaten it in 1996. It was only after a rematch and an upgrade in machine intelligence that the computer defeated this chess mastermind. Even though Garry retired from chess in 2005, he went on to lead a pretty interesting life. He actually started his own political organization called the United Civil Front as an opposition to Russian President Vladimir Putin. He then went on to become one of the main players in a coalition of political parties with the singular goal of ousting Putin from political power. However, he was arrested in 2007 following several protests and was later released. Garry Kasparov became a Croatian citizen in 2014. It seems that he does not want to be involved with the government of Russia, which is ruled by a man that he vehemently disagrees with. His chess accomplishments and political involvement clearly demonstrate how geniuses can do a lot in a number of different fields when they put their minds to it. William James Sidis. William James Sidis was a child prodigy in the late 19th century. He is currently recognized as the smartest man who had ever lived, boasting an estimated IQ of between 250 and 300. However, the smartest man alive died without a penny to his name working in an office. So what went wrong? William was the son of Ukrainian immigrants in New York City. At just 18 months old, William was able to read the New York Times. By the time he turned 6, William could speak English, German, French, Hebrew, Turkish, Armenian, and Russian. As if speaking 7 languages by the age of 6 wasn't impressive enough, he invented his own language as a child, became deeply interested in poetry, wrote a novel, and even wrote a constitution for a potential utopian society. At the age of 9, William was accepted into Harvard University, in which he enrolled at the tender age of 11. As a student in 1910, he lectured the Harvard Mathematical Club on incredibly complex topics that almost nobody except him could understand. He then graduated in 1914 from Harvard at only 16 years old. William was about as smart as 3 average human people combined, but despite his intelligence, he had a rough life. He got a teaching job in Houston at the Rice Institute, later known as Rice University, but was driven out. To make matters worse, he was later arrested at the Boston May Day Socialist March in 1919 and sentenced to 18 months in prison for allegedly assaulting a police officer. This almost certainly traumatized him and led him to become reclusive and unhappy. In the end, William James Sidis died of cerebral hemorrhage and at the age of 46. He had no money to his name, he worked a boring job as an office clerk, and he was found dead in his apartment by his landlady. What do you think? Did this man's insane intelligence actually work against him as an adult? Would you even want to be as smart as him? Let me know how you feel about superintelligence in the comments below, and when you're done with that, remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you like this and other fact-filled videos, you'll absolutely love what's next in store. Bobby Fischer. Another troubled genius. Bobby Fischer died under fairly bleak circumstances. In life, he was one of the greatest chess players ever to pick up the game and the greatest American player in history. But his life was truly miserable. After becoming insanely famous around the world, Bobby Fischer stopped playing chess, lost most of his money and friends, and took to living in exile in Budapest, Japan, Switzerland, and even the Philippines. According to the New York Times, Bobby eventually moved to Iceland in 2005, became a citizen, and then died in 2008, only 3 years later. The biggest problem with Bobby Fischer was that his intelligence led to insanity. He began seeing conspiracies everywhere, and he turned into an angry racist man. Whenever he did come under public eye, he was often belligerent against the United States and against Jews. As you can imagine, his popularity was basically non-existent after his fall from the world of chess. He was like the Babe Ruth of chess in the 70s, but when he came out of seclusion in 1992 for a $5 million rematch against another grandmaster, Boris Spassky, nobody seemed to care about chess anymore. The match got little attention, plus the match was held in Yugoslavia, and America at the time had a ban on conducting business in Yugoslavia. This made Fischer a wanted man by the United States and caused him to go on the run. He was seized in 2004 by Japanese authorities as he tried to fly to Manila, leaving the country with an invalid passport. After being detained in prison for 9 months, he eventually made his way to Iceland, and there he died, a sobering reminder that sometimes intelligence leads to more problems than it's worth. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Neil deGrasse Tyson is one of the most famous scientists of the modern world. However, there's a raging debate going on about just how smart Tyson really is. Many in the science community have denounced Tyson as more of a pop figure than a scientist, with many people claiming it is not so much about how smart he is, but how well he is able to regurgitate information, and in such a way that he really captivates listeners and draws people's attention. But all of his credentials aside, Tyson is definitely the current popular voice of astronomy and science, educating millions with his media appearances. And according to Tyson, he believes our universe could actually just be a simulation being run on a computer by something smarter than us. And he's not alone in his theory. There are other scientists who believe the same thing, but there are others like physicist Lisa Randall who believe the universe is absolutely real and that the chance of it being not real is basically zero. But that has not stopped Tyson from claiming the chances of the universe being a simulation are very high. So who's right? Are we in a simulation or not? Let me know what you think about this deeply philosophical question in a comment below. Cleopatra. Almost everyone is familiar with Cleopatra, the ancient queen of Egypt and lover of Roman Emperor Caesar. However, many people don't know that Cleopatra was not actually Egyptian. She was Greek and ruled Egypt during the time that followed Alexander the Great's death, when the Greeks were ruling Egypt and much of the surrounding area. And apparently, Cleopatra was one of the smartest women in the world, not only at the time, but in all of history. She was proficient in mathematics, medicine, economics, history, geography, and even alchemy. And she could supposedly speak 9 languages, which is way more than any of the presidents of the United States. The last truly multilingual president was Franklin Roosevelt, and he only spoke French, German, and English. In any case, it's interesting to find out that the most beautiful woman of ancient Egypt was also the most brilliant, and of course the deadliest. That's why it's said the Romans hated her so much. She was just too powerful and a huge threat. Stephen Hawking. So as far as modern geniuses go, Stephen Hawking definitely takes the cake. But why was he such a genius? He did not discover black holes, did not invent any life-altering technology, and he did not come up with the incredible Big Bang Theory. But he did bring together a few different types of physics theories, including cosmology, gravitation, thermodynamics, and quantum theory. He was definitely a genius, but his biggest contribution to the scientific community was discovering that black holes emit radiation, which is today known as Hawking radiation. This is a powerful tool that lets us understand where black holes exist in our universe and how they are moving. According to an article from BBC, he also revealed a lot of information about the universe as a whole, showing that it was possible to detail the whole history of the universe in a single mathematical expression that he called the wave function of the universe. We're still building off of his impressive body of knowledge even today, several years after his passing, and the fact that he did all of this despite crippling physical handicaps that left him in a wheelchair for nearly all of his adult life makes him an even more impressive figure in the world of science. Marilyn Voss Savant. Marilyn Voss Savant holds the title of the world's smartest woman. She was born in St. Louis, Missouri in 1946. By the time Marilyn was 10, she was revealed to have the mental capacity of a 23-year-old woman through taking 2 different intelligence tests. She was then eventually listed in the Guinness Book of World Records as having the highest IQ in the world, and from there Marilyn achieved international fame. And even though she could have done anything that she wanted in the 1980s, she moved to New York City to become a writer. She then went on to work for Parade magazine after they had written a profile on her. She then created a very famous weekly column known as Ask Marilyn, where she would answer lots of different academic questions for the readers. One of her most famous columns involves a classic problem involving a game show contestant trying to figure out the odds of winning a prize. It's called the Monty Hall problem, and despite thousands of educated people calling her a fool for her answer, eventually she was proven correct. Her intellect simply could not be defeated. William Shakespeare. Shakespeare was one of the smartest people ever for radically different reasons than the rest of the people on this list. Shakespeare was not necessarily a genius of mathematics or the sciences, but he is still considered one of the most gifted intellects in literary history. He is often recognized as the most brilliant English writer of all time, with a grasp of the English language and a great sense of humor and storytelling that no writer before or since has been able to equal. In terms of success, not a single writer in history has reached the influence, acclaim, or enduring commercial success as William Shakespeare. In fact, according to Britannica, Shakespeare's writing has been studied more than that of any other writer in the world. However, some claim that Shakespeare is more of a genius for being born at the proper time in history. His birth coincided with a point in time when English language, English education, and English theater were blooming like never before. Combined with the social and political structure of England at the time and the dawning of the powerful British Empire, all these factors play into why Shakespeare became so famous and why he continues to be so famous today. He was really the very first playwright in a time that was perfect for his talents, and for this he will remain famous forever. Never underestimate the power of circumstance to favor the right person in the right place at the right time. Nikola Tesla. Nikola Tesla was born on July 10, 1856, in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but later moved to America and competed with Thomas Edison in a contest to see who would invent the best way to power the world. Tesla is arguably the most famous Serbian of all time and the grandfather of electricity. Tesla was also an avid inventor who filed over 300 patents during his 86 years of life on this planet. He helped popularize alternating current, radios, lasers, remote controls, electric motors, and so much more. He was the one who implemented the first technologies to use the rotating magnetic field, a principle of physics that we still use today in just about every device that uses AC power. The big difference between Tesla and Edison, who worked together by the way in New Jersey, was that Edison preferred to use DC power while Tesla favored AC power. Basically, it was direct current versus alternating current. As you might already know, Tesla won this electrical battle because alternating current was more effective. For his ingenuity and desire for knowledge, Tesla was one of the smartest people ever. Today, his namesake car company is possibly more famous than he ever was, but never forget this genius and his influence in shaping what would become modern life. Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein has been considered the ultimate genius and one of the smartest people in the world since before his death. For years, researchers assumed it took a superhuman brain to come up with the types of theories that Einstein created, specifically the theory of relativity and other theories of modern physics. And interestingly enough, a new study of Einstein's preserved brain concluded that it was unusual in several ways. According to a scientific report by sciencemag.org, Einstein's brain contained extra folds and convolutions, but scientists are unsure how these could have given him such exemplary powers of deduction. You see, when Einstein died in 1955 at the ripe old age of 76, his son Hans Albert preserved the brain of his father to be studied. Unlike many geniuses who weren't recognized until after their death, everybody knew how smart Einstein was even before he died. He was a Nobel Prize winner. In any case, his brain was cut into 240 blocks, and these blocks were then embedded in a resin-type substance for preservation. The resin block containing the 240 pieces of Einstein's brain was then cut into 2,000 thin sections to be studied microscopically. Einstein's brain is now the most researched brain of any genius, with copies and samples spread across the entire world. Without a doubt, Albert Einstein had the most famous brain of all time. Which one of these super smart people surprised you most? Tell me in the comments below, and thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and see you again soon for another amazing video.